Hello, everyone. Natalie here. Today I'm going to talk about the invisible dilemma that our children face, that often we as parents were not aware of, that they have this dilemma going on. And it has to do with their needs. Every child has two very fundamental needs that they have. And those needs sometimes they come in conflict of each other. And when they come in conflict of each other, our child has to make a decision. Which need is going to be met? And often that decision is going to be influenced by how we as a parent respond and show up and react to our children. So this is what I'm covering today. If you're new to my community, welcome. I'm very happy to have you here. The intention of this community is for me to share with you information that maybe you are not aware of, or maybe you've been aware of, and it's a good refresher. Often what we learn, we need to put it in practice because it's one thing to know and another thing to integrate that in our life as a parent. And that's what will change what we experience with our kids and the type of relationship we're having with our children. So welcome if you're new. And if you have any questions about what I'm going to cover today, feel free to reach out to me in the group and ask your questions as well. So what are those two fundamental needs that a child has? So the first need that you must have heard is the attachment needs, the core drive for proximity, for responsiveness, for attunement from a caregiver. From infancy and all the way up to the teenage years, there needs to be attachment. So that need is very important for a child to have a strong connection with at least one parent, one caregiver, so they can feel loved, they can feel accepted, they feel like they belong, and therefore they feel safe to be in this world. So a child will do everything possible to not jeopardize that need in order to survive. Without the attachment, a child can't survive, and they know that. It's very instinctual in us as humans to know that our attachment needs to be loved, to be seen, to be heard, to be accepted, to feel like we belong is key for our survival. So a child, for instance, may behave in a way that triggers us, but know that they don't intentionally want to upset us. The behavior is to get our attention and to get our attention to attune to the needs, right? And that's why sometimes we don't understand and we think, okay, they're just behaving this way and it's personal and you just want to make me mad, but that's not the case. So that I just wanted to throw that in so you remember that a lot of time behaviors has nothing to do if the child loves us or care about us or is respecting us. The behaviors usually is a symptom of something they're feeling that they need our attention to get our help with. So be it it's aggression, tantrums in any forms, lying, disconnection, even like withdrawal, all these are just symptoms at the end of the day. And what is the other need? Is the need for authenticity. That's another core need that usually we miss, right? So what does it mean to be authentic? It means to be true to oneself, to honor our needs, to honor our gut feeling, what our inner being is wanting to express or do in the moment, and the ability to express our own emotions, right? So what happens when there is a conflict, because those are two needs. And sometimes these two needs come in conflict of each other. So when the attachment needs are threatened perhaps by the need to be authentic. So what do I mean about that? Is that maybe picture yourself. Maybe you are, when you were a child, you were very loud, or you're a child that loves to sing, to jump up and down. You had lots of energy. And one day you're just being yourself, being loud or singing, and you're told, stop this. You're giving me a headache. Yeah, I'm sure you can recognize being in one of these situations, or maybe you as a parent, you've done it with your child. I know I have. So in that moment when you're saying, you're too loud, you're giving me a headache, stop what you're doing, it's giving a message to our child. Because the child is just being herself or himself in this moment and expressing. But in that moment, there's also a disconnection that happens with us, the parent, when we say, stop it. I have a headache. I can't stand this. Go in another room, or I'm going to leave. I can't deal with this right now. There's a disconnection. And when there's a disconnection without an explanation of what's going on with us as a parent, and not making it as the child causing us to have a headache, not the child making us be angry, right? So it's not the behavior of the child. If I ask you, that headache may have been lingering. The stress we are feeling may have already been there. We may already had a bad day where things are not going well for us. And then our child is coming in and, just being there themselves. And that's just drive us to that limit. And then we can't deal with it. So often when there's no explanation and we're blaming, in a sense, our child, and we're telling them to stop their behavior, or themselves are causing us to feel bad in some way, then we're giving the reason and that they can't be themselves. And I want you to let that sink in. We're giving them that perception that when they are themselves, when they're just happy and wanting to jump up and down and just being a child, that it's not okay. It's not okay. And they feel the disconnection right away. And so in that moment, there's a dilemma, because they feel that disconnection strongly. And also there's that need to express themselves, to be themselves. And in that moment, what is the child going to choose? Are they going to choose the disconnection? Or are they going to choose that need for authenticity? Well, guess which one is going to go? All the time, it's that need for authenticity, because they can't bear not having connection with their caregiver, with their parent. They can't bear that. That pain is too much for a child. And so over time, if it keeps happening, the child wants to do this, but it doesn't, for us, that's not what we want them to do, right? The child wants to be messy, right? And we are a parent who wants the house and the room to be clean all the time. We can't stand the mess. We can't stand it when there's too much noise in the house and we want them to be more quiet. We can't stand it when they fight with each other and we want them to stop right away. And of course, if they're going to hurt each other, we need to step in and we can't let that happen. But when they're just being children and just fighting and, but I know it escalates and it can get loud, that we can't stand it and we start to get angry and then we start to threaten or we send them away or we leave them and we move away, we disconnect, they can feel that. And if that keeps happening, that gives the child the message that they can't be who they are, so that they can maintain connection with us. Yeah, that's the perception. It may not be true. I know it's not true. That's not what you want for a parent. You actually want their best, and I get it. But for them, as a child, they can't comprehend that. They just interpret that message over and over because of the disconnection. And then they say, oh, that's not safe to be me. It's not safe for me to be loud. It's safe to me to be, wanting to move and even, battling with my brothers and sisters. I like to be rough. I like to express my energy. I like to sing out loud and so on. But that's not well received. And I know it because it happened over and over and over again. So that's how the child then starts to disconnect with that need for authenticity, that need to be themselves. And instead, what do? Okay, let's find out what's going to make mom and dad happy. Oh, when mom and dad are around and they don't want any noise, I need to be quiet. I can't be loud. So I learned to shut down that part of myself so I can accommodate them. And if I do this over and over and over again, who do I become? I become this good little girl who knows what mom and dad needs. Because when I know what they need and I do it, I maintain connection. My attachment needs are met. But when I don't, and I just be myself, there's disconnection. So then I will continue to maintain connection. And as I maintain connection, then I develop a different me. I become a people pleaser. I become the good little girl. I become the good student. I become this and that because that's what maintains the connection. Or I'm perceiving that's what's maintaining the connection. And so this is the dilemma that every child go through to certain degrees. And those of us as parents, we can recognize in ourselves if we have any of those traits of a people pleaser, of a good student or good little girl, the quiet girl, the one that doesn't ruffle any feathers, the one who abides by the law all the time and going with what everybody else says. Well, those are sub-personalities that we develop. The part of us that wants to clean all the time, needs the house to be tidy all the time. The part of us who always have to make sure we have things done in a certain way. Well, guess what? How did that develop? Well, it developed because our caregivers, our parents, that's what they wanted from us. And in order to keep that connection with our parents, we felt like we needed to do what they wanted from us. So why am I sharing that with you today? It's because if you're conscious of that and you know in your own upbringing how you sacrifice your need for authenticity in order for your attachment needs to be met, then you have this awareness with your children. Then you can question. Every time when my child has a messy room and I start to raise my voice and I'm directing them to clean, what am I doing in this instance? Is there something in me that's activated that I need to take care of? And yeah, I'm not saying you don't teach your child how to clean their space, but you're not activated when you're teaching them that. You can maintain connection with them and teach them what they need to learn rather than forcing, pushing, imposing, and that creates disconnection, and children can't learn when there's disconnection, right? And then nobody's happy. So questioning as a parent how you show up, what activates you, what makes you angry, what triggers you, what upsets you, and notice where that comes from. That need for your child to be a certain way, to be quiet. And when you can address that, you'll find out that that has a deeper root. It's not just with your child. And often this is that deep root cause needs to be explored, needs to be excavated, needs to be changed. Perhaps there are beliefs there. And when we do that, then we can not only keep that connection with our child because we know it's important, but also we can allow our children to be who they are, to allow them to express themselves, because our children are not us. Yes, some of our children have similar trait as us, perhaps, but often they don't. And is that a bad thing? And I don't think so. It's how do we allow them to be themselves so that when they become adults, that they have less of reconnection to make within themselves, because that's what happens to us. We disconnect with who we are, and then later in life we realize, oh, I haven't been myself for so long, and there's a longing in me to be who I am. And then we get on that journey to heal, to reconnect with ourselves. And so if we can do this work now because it's happening, then do it so you can also help your child to have less disconnection. Not that disconnection is not to happen. We are humans, this happen. But if we can lessen the disconnection, then our children will stay true to who they are and have less of that inner work to do later on. So I wanted to bring that to your attention because I feel it's important that we are aware of this as parents. And when we are aware of it, then we can question when there's disconnect. We will feel it too, and our children will feel it, but we can also do the repair sooner than later. So there's less damage, there's less disconnection going on. So I want to finish with a story that I heard about this little girl who loved to sing. And mom came home one day and she was singing very loud, and mom wasn't feeling well. So mom told her to stop singing but she used a harsh tone. And therefore, that little girl felt the disconnect. And it was so painful for that little girl that she decided she no longer wanted to sing anymore. And she stopped singing. And later on, as an adult, in one of her therapy sessions, she realized what had happened to her, why she stopped singing. Because in that moment, she had to make a choice between her attachment needs, her connection with mom to feel loved and safe, and her authenticity needs, the love of singing. She was a singer. So she disconnected with that part of her in order to maintain the attachment. And then later on in life, she knew, this is what she loves to do, but she hasn't been able to do it for so long. Why is that? Because that's what brought her joy, made her happy, but she didn't feel that she could go there. And when she was able to come to why that happened, understand why it happened, then she was able to allow her feelings that she couldn't express as a little girl on that day when there was that disconnection, to allow all of that to be expressed and to reconnect with this important part of herself that was always craving to express herself through songs, through singing. So this is a story I will leave you with, and maybe you can see glimpses of you in that story. Perhaps similar thing happened to you or to somebody else. We don't want that for our children. And I know if you're in this group, you're wanting to be a better parent for your children. And you can be. And it's not about blaming yourself. It's not about making yourself wrong for past mistakes. None of that. That's not my intention to talk about these things, but more so to bring your awareness moving forward, what you need to be aware of as a parent. And also if it's calling to you to reconnect with your own authentic needs, to do that, to learn to reconnect. And if you want to learn more about how can you reconnect with your authentic needs as a parent, which is very important, so you can show up the way you want to show up with your kids. You can be yourself with your kids and also maintain connection with them and allowing them to be themselves as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to learn more about this, and feel free to share this video with others who you think will benefit from it. The more parents are more aware, the more we're going to help our children and raise them in a way that will allow them to stay whole and to stay true to themselves at the same time that their needs are being met. So any questions, feel free to put them in the thread. Thank you for listening. And your feedback is always welcome, good or bad. It helps me become a better person and become better at sharing information with you. So feel free to share any feedback, any questions, any concerns, anything you need help with. Reach out to me or send me a direct message. Take care, everybody, and thank you for listening. Bye.